Good morning, thank you for joining me for Walking with the Word. It is a stunning day out here in the Peak District. I've been out with my family. My little boy is 3 years old and we were climbing around, and you can see the kind of terrain we're in. Let me give you a spin around there. You'll notice that there are these big rocks. Now, there's nothing more exciting to an energetic, active 3-year-old boy than clambering up these rocks, scrambling, grabbing roots, getting muddy. He's just having an absolutely amazing time. So we found a rock that looks actually a bit like this one over here. You see that kind of thing. I love building his confidence. I love kind of helping him become more brave. So we got him to stand up on this rock, and we started playing this game where he basically had to jump into my arms, and over time I gradually moved that a little bit further back. So at first it was nice and close and he kind of just fell into my arms, and by the end he was just leaping off these rocks into my arms, and it was great as a papa seeing my boy just being brave, really throwing himself into it quite literally. And then I thought, wow, so we're building his strength, his confidence. Let's work on his trust. So trust is an important thing, isn't it? We all need to learn to trust people. It's an essential part of living in a community, in relationships, in family, with friendships. So it's a great way to kind of build his trust. So we did that classic game where I got him to kind of face the other way on a slightly lower rock this time and hold his arms out, and I said, right, don't look round, and you've just got to kind of fall back and trust that I'm going to be there to catch you. And of course every time we did it I was there ready to catch him. And I think this is a wonderful illustration of what it is to trust, because what happened was, just as he was about to shift his weight and fall backwards, thank you, every time he's about to shift his weight and fall backwards, what would happen is he would kind of glance over his shoulder at me just to check I'm still there. Of course, it's a very natural thing to do. So I was trying to build his confidence and just get him to focus on one thing on the horizon and then just fall back into my arms. I thought this is a beautiful illustration of what it is to believe in God. Belief can be a confusing word, because to believe something is true is to hold a sort of attitude towards its truth. It's like an intellectual thing. So, for example, I believe that the sun is in that direction. That's a belief I currently hold, and I can look over and confirm it when I look in that direction. I believe my car is parked on the road just up there. At least I hope it is, but I hold a belief. So I have a sort of intellectual attitude towards truth. That's what a belief is. It's a kind of affirming a certain belief, a certain truth, that something is true, and you believe it. But belief can also be a kind of act of trust. You believe in something. The Bible uses a term, faith. We have faith in God. It's kind of an active, trusting belief where you're kind of willing to actually put yourself into a situation and say, yeah, I'm going to fall back. So I think this is a beautiful illustration. Not only did my little boy have to believe that I was there behind him and that I would catch him, he also had to kind of take some risk. There's a stake in that for him. He actually had to take an act of trust by falling back into my arms. There's a wonderful illustration that Nicky Gumbel shares. He's an amazing church leader, and he says this. He says there's this tightrope, and this guy was walking across this tightrope, impressing crowds, and every day he would say to the crowds, you believe I can do this? And the crowd would go, yeah, we believe it. And he kind of do increasingly impressive stunts where he would kind of one day walk across just on the tightrope, then he'd go juggling, and then he would go on his hands and do a handstand in the middle, stuff like all those sorts of like increasingly impressive stunts. And then one day he came up with a wheelbarrow and he said, do you believe I can go across here with this wheelbarrow? And everyone was like, yeah, you can do it. So this guy said, okay then, who's willing to get in? Who's going to get in the wheelbarrow? If you believe I can do it, are you willing to believe in me? Do you trust me? Can you actually have that act of faith? And it's similar with this game of trust that we use with children to kind of build their trust. We get them to really trust us. But what's interesting about this is when my little boy was leaning back and falling back into my arms, he was trusting me because I told him I'd be there. And every time I said I'll be there, I was there and I caught him. But what was really interesting, there was a point where after doing this several times with him, I said, right, let's do some more jumps off the big rock. So I got him back up onto the big rock, and he basically, I went round to the part where he was going to jump into my arms, and he basically stood where I put him, and he was ready to just fall backwards into my arms again. I thought I wouldn't have been there. That was actually really scary. Fortunately, my beautiful wife Emma was there. She spotted. She's like, "Pete!" And I kind of ran back round. Unfortunately, he didn't do that thing where he actually fell back. Had he done that, it was actually a really high rock. I'm glad he didn't do that. But he presumed that we were still doing the trust game. I put him up there to jump into my arms. And what's really interesting is I think this illustrates another aspect of faith. Every time I was on that small rock with my boy, getting him to fall backwards into my arms, I told him I'd be there. I'd encourage him. I'd say, look forward, trust me, I'm going to be there, I'm going to catch you. When I put him up on the bigger rock, I hadn't said that to him. I'd said, we're going to come and do another jumping shot now. We're going to come and have a go at jumping into my arms. We'll have a shot at that. And he basically stood there and presumed that we were still doing the trust game. And I think it can be like this with faith as well. We're called to have faith as Christians, as people of God, as followers of Jesus. We're called to walk in faith. But that implies that there's something to have faith in. There's a word, there's a command, there's a calling. And we can sometimes be a little bit reckless and presume that we're doing it in the name of faith. And let me give you some examples, right? So let's say you are attracted to a beautiful big house. You believe it would be a good space for your family. Maybe you have ministry goals for the house. Maybe you think I could host a small group here, and you're thinking about the hospitality you could have. And perhaps part of you've got this belief that God wants you to have this house. But has he really spoken it to you? Is the word really there? Because sometimes I think we can presume that God is saying something because we want it that much, and sadly it's just something that we want for ourselves. And we kind of do this trusting thing, but there hasn't really been the word. God's not told us or called us or encouraged us to do it, but we just want to do it because there's maybe some benefits for ourselves. So we put ourselves in these risky positions in the name of faith, thinking that we are doing something that's a faith-filled action, but really God's not stood behind us. His arms aren't out to catch us in that way because we're doing something of our own initiative. So the encouragement here is, if you think God might be calling you into something, if you think, for example, maybe God is calling you to have a big house, and maybe he is. I'm not saying God never calls us to buy big houses or do things like that, but if you feel that might be the case, really test it, seek God, do it with open hands, do it in a way where you're willing to hear God say no, and you're willing to hear him say yes. Your heart is open, your arms are open, your hands are open. It's like, God, whatever you say, I want to do, I trust you. And just tune into him, be willing to listen for his confirmation, his word, whichever way round that comes, whether it's God's confirming that it's a good thing to do or not something to do. And if it is something to do, you can trust he'll be there. In the same way that I was there for my boy, I would never want to let my boy fall. God is going to be there for you, even more so, because you know what, I'm fallible. I could have made a mistake there when he got on that bigger rock, and that would have been horrible. But God is infallible. He loves us, he cares for us, he has our best interests at heart. All we need to do is just seek him out and completely and truly desire and center our lives on his will, his purpose, his plans, submitting and committing more of our lives to him every day. So God bless you. I hope this has been an encouraging word. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.